Hi, I'm Carol, an artist, and you're watching the second video in my series on my creative process. In the first video, I explained how my work explores the relationship between the real and the imaginary. And I was also explaining that recently I've been drawn to cosmic images, and I was inspired by a book called Cosmic Graphics, which shows old maps of the universe. Essentially, this book made me realize that our perception of the universe influences how we act and plan for the future. And that was already the case in the old times, even though the maps of the ancient people were inaccurate and partially fictional. They were still impacting their present and their future. And that's where I started sensing that there was an interesting link between reality and the imagination that I had to explore. So I began to brainstorm, and that brainstorm will ultimately lead me to create a new sculpture. So this video is all about that brainstorming process. So what usually happens when I feel inspired, when I feel like I really want to dig into something, is that I take a giant piece of paper, these paper rolls that you use for kids so they can draw freely. I find them super useful because you can just choose the size of the paper on the spot, and it's like having like an unlimited surface to sketch your ideas on. With this, I do a sort of brainstorm where I throw all of my ideas, things I want to research, the links between them, what I'm looking into currently, etc. And usually after a few days or weeks, it ends up looking like this. So in this case, I was obviously limited with the gift wrapping paper. So I had to pile up a few of them until it covered completely my desk. So once I have this, I highlight what I find the most essential, and I structure my idea on the computer this time. So just in a writing software, I just like make some bullet points. This time I also created a more visual brainstorm, or you can call it a mood board. Here it is. So the book is called Cosmic Graphic, which I think is a very useful word because it basically designates maps of the cosmos or visual representations of the cosmos. So I'm gonna keep using that word in this video. So during the brainstorm and research period, I found out that in the Western world, before the scientific revolution that took place in the 16th century, cosmic graphics, so these maps of the cosmos, they were basically imagined realities. So it was basically fictions that influenced reality through beliefs. So what is an imagined reality? So for example, a piece of metal on its own, it doesn't have intrinsic value. You can't eat it, you can't drink it. But because there is this sort of common agreement to believe that it has value all over the world, all of a sudden this piece of metal is designated as money, and this money can give you access to food which has intrinsic value. So in other words, something fictional with no intrinsic value acquired some influence in the world through common belief. So fiction acquired a certain degree of reality. And then the opposite happened. Reality progressively entered the realm of fiction and cosmic maps during the Renaissance. And the Renaissance is this period that brought scientific knowledge in the Western world, and that shaped significant change in our conception of the universe up until this day. So we talked about the old images of the universe, but what about what's going on now? How do we represent now the universe? What's interesting me, of course, it's the way we relate to our reality and fiction in our period of time. Well, the way we currently visualize the universe, it's based on quantum physics, astrophysics, space imaginary, satellites, computer simulations, and it just reveals a reality that seems almost fictional and multiple. Think, for example, about black holes. If you look a bit into limited knowledge we have about black holes, it almost sounds like a fiction because it's so far from what we know. And so the way we represent the universe nowadays, it's almost melting the border between the real and the imaginary. And so we now oscillate between imagined realities and what I name real imaginaries. So what do I mean by real imaginaries? So remember, imagined realities, it's when fiction enters reality through common beliefs. Well, real imaginaries, that's the opposite. So it's when reality enters the realm of fiction through observation, not through beliefs, but through observation. So what I mean by that is that the knowledge we have now of the universe, it leads to speculations. It leads to new ideas like the block universe theory or the multiverse theory or the extraterrestrial life hypothesis. This is hard to say as a non native English speaker, or the simulation hypothesis discourses about planets we could potentially live on, etc. And so these representations, they shape our understanding of the present or of how the universe is right now, but also the way we're going to live in the future, right? Like, for example, are we going to live on Mars or not? And these projections, these ideas we have of the future, they lead to ventures in space exploration, satellite internet systems, and asteroid mining, for example, to cite a few. So I thought, okay, is there a way to synthesize visually these maps of the cosmos if I want to refer to all these grand representations we have about the cosmos? Because I knew that this was an element that I wanted to include. So all I've talked about right now, all these maps of the universe, I call them macro cosmic graphic. Cosmic graphic, it simply means that it's a graphic representation of the cosmos. And macro, it simply means large scale, because these representations of the cosmos, they are very general, right? Or like they address the cosmos on a very large scale. It might seem very complicated and useless that I come up with my own vocabulary and labels and definitions, but I find it very useful when I work on a project to develop my own vocabulary, because words are sort of lenses through which you see the world. In that way, they also organize your thoughts. So developing my own vocabulary is a way for me to frame what I want to say in a very precise way.